Powiedzenie. How's that for a little bit of Polish introduction? So, all right, cool. This time we're going to be talking about a Polish P64, as you can see here. This is a nice little piece that I ran across while I was away from my training. Those who have been watching the channel have noticed I had a little bit of a break there for a few months because I was doing some training. And I was in a different part of the country, and I visited one of the pawn shops that shall not be named for reasons I'll mention later, that had a, this pistol, this P64 here. And they had it for a really good price, and I was like, man, that's pretty cool. I've always wanted one of these things, but the current prices for these things are a little bit higher than I'd like to pay. Because I remember when these, there was a huge batch of them that came in a couple of years ago, and they were selling them for $200, sometimes even sub $200 for one of these. And they'd come with like the original like leather holster, additional mag, cleaning rod, all the extra goodies that you'd want, right? So seeing them on Gunbroker now, I mean, you're looking at 300 minimum, probably at 350, 400 for a really, really nice example. And there's no guarantee that you're going to get the holster or the extra mag, so on and so forth, right? So the price was really good, and I opted to pick one of these up. Now, the U.S. firearm laws being what they are, of course, I was not a resident of that state, so I could not legally take possession of that pistol while I was there. So I talked to the pawn shop guys there, and I said, okay, hey, I'm here for some training. I'm TDY. I will come and submit for a transfer for this to my FFL back to where I live. And they said, cool, good to go. Everything was nice and peachy, and they assured me that the shipping would not be too expensive. Usual transfer fee, $25, $30, $40, whatever, right? Cool, that's fine. How it ended up being is that particular pawn shop ended up being an absolute pain to deal with, and they just refused to do the FFL transfer process up until I had to call my own shop here, my own FFL here, to call them to get them to initiate the transfer, and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of extra work and steps that I had to do personally just to get them to ship my pistol that I'd already bought and paid in full, right? To get them to ship it to where I am now. So, big pain in the butt. And on top of that, they charged me like $100-something for overnight shipping, even though it didn't even get here until like 3 or 4 days later. So much for overnight shipping, right? So, yeah, whatever. Point is, I'm not doing business with that pawn shop anymore. It shall not be named. But I've also learned my lesson. I probably should not be buying guns while I'm TDY. So, but anyway, regardless of that, it still came out to a pretty decent price, all things considered. So, with this particular example, unfortunately, it does have a big old import mark right there, as you can see. Big old billboard. It's a little bit hard to see because it's very kind of faint in the markings there, but it is definitely there. Now, I will say this is probably better than like Century Arms imports, which are just like this huge, like nasty stamp that they always put in all their guns. It looks terrible. PW Arms tends to do a little bit better on that job. But anyway, so a P64. This is a Polish pistol from Poland, and it has the nice little Circle 11 right there. So it is from the Radom factory. And these were the pistol that was in place after the Tokarev pistols, but before the P83 Wanad pistols. So, as you can see, this is a pretty small gun, and it's chambered in, 9mm Makarov, of course. And it takes a lot of inspiration, I would say personally, from like the Walther PP series, or even, very similar to Makarov, but Makarov pistols, of course, took a lot of inspiration from Walther PP pistols as well. They're all kind of related. Now, this thing does have, though, a few little features that are a little bit different. One of them being the way that the loaded chamber indicator works. So you can see right back here, there's a loaded chamber indicator right there. And those who have operated Walther PP or PPK pistols also know that they do have a loaded chamber indicator on the back as well. But if you look at a parts diagram, you'll see that there is like a gigantic thing like that's sticking out basically right there, this big rod that just sticks into the chamber there. And it pokes out a little bit when you have a round in there. Obviously, I don't have a round in there right now, but it's pretty interesting. Now, the other thing is, too, is you'll notice that the slide is not, of course, not a direct copy of the PPK because, it's nice and flat here on the top, and then it has this nice cool raised section here in the back with a dovetailed rear sight, which is very minimal, but 100% usable, as I found myself when I was shooting this. And of course, this is a later model that has the more triangular hammer here in the back. The earlier models had a more rounded shaped hammer. So this particular example, of course, was made in 1976. I don't know if that'll show up there. The lighting's a little bad for blued models like this. But anyway, it says 1976 right there. And yeah, manual of arms is pretty much like a Walther PP or Makarov pistol. So, you know, the trigger guard comes down here for disassembly. You guys know how that works. And it has the slide mounted safety there, which is more akin to a PPK, down for safe and decock, and up for fire. So pretty simple. The other thing is too, a little bit different from the PP series, but similar more to a Makarov, is the heel release for the magazine. So as you know, on a Walther PP, the magazine release is right up here. Usually there's a little button, but they opted for a heel release mag that you pull, or push back rather, and pull the mag out. Now to me, that's no problem at all, because I'm used to like the Ruger Mark II, for instance, right, which had a heel magazine release. So to me, that's no problem at all. I'm totally used to that. It's completely natural to me. In and out, easy. But because this gun is, of course, very small, more like PPK form factor, the magazines, of course, are correspondingly small, and so they only hold 6 rounds. So 6 plus 1 in this, so 7 rounds of 9mm Makarov. You know, it's obviously outdated according to today's standards, especially when you compare it to like a Smith & Wesson Shield like this, just 10 plus 1 of 9mm. It's a little outdated, sure, but there is a certain charm that just kind of comes with these old, Cold War era pistols, and it's got a really nice bluing job, honestly, despite this being not like, super duper great condition or anything. The bluing job is very nice. It's held up very well, and P64s are just kind of like they're a handsome looking pistol. They look good, and I really like the lines on this gun, and it's definitely something different. So I will definitely attest that the Poles absolutely do make very excellent weapons, and this is no exception. So as far as shooting experience, though, P64s are known for their incredible double action trigger pull, right? So some people will say that anywhere from 20 to 35 pound trigger pull, something crazy like that. And I have come across some examples in gun shops where I was not physically able to pull the double action with one hand. This one I can, and I'm not sure if the previous owner of this had put the wolf springs in it or not. I might have to check someday to see. But of course, as you saw, I am in fact able to pull the trigger here with one finger. I have seen some examples and personally held them where I literally could not pull the trigger all the way through, and my hand is shaking like this, and I had to get both fingers in here to pull the trigger. So I know those examples exist. I've seen them, I've handled them, of course. But other than the double action, which is mildly inconvenient, the single action on these is actually pretty darn decent, and it feels very different from your PPK or Makarov single action trigger. It's kind of hard to describe, and you kind of need to experience it for yourself to really understand what that difference is. But it's kind of like the way that the trigger mechanism here pivots in such a way, it is remarkably different from your PPK and Makarov pistols. So you got a little bit of take up here, and then there's a little, and it just kind of goes. This thing does surprise me quite a bit, and how light it is, and two, where the trigger actually breaks. So it's not like a super defined wall. You don't get to like, oh yeah, there it is, and then it's a clean trigger break all the way through. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say rolling, but not like a Glock trigger where it kind of rolls all the way through the pull, but it goes off sooner than you might think. It's very hard to describe. I've never really had a pistol that had a trigger pull in single action quite like this gun. Not to say it's bad, it's not. It definitely is light and it's good. Testament to my accuracy, I'll show here in a couple of targets that I have. But it does take a little bit of getting used to, so you understand how this pistol works and you kind of know when it's going to go off. So single action on this is very, very good. And like I said, I'm not sure if someone replaced the springs in here already, but as this one came to me as it is, the trigger pulls on this are excellent. The reset is pretty awful, I will say. So I'll just try to show you here real quick. And there it is. And yeah, it's very like not tactile, not audible at all, but you know, and then you have a little bit of creep and then it breaks again. Very, very light trigger. But you know, you're not buying old pistols, old milsurp guns like this for the sake of their resets or nice triggers or anything like that. You're buying it because it's cool and it's different and it's historical, right? So in that sense, this pistol works very, very well. I've had no issues with it at all whatsoever. I've done +1s with it. You know, the small amount of rounds that I've shot through it, because I don't actually have a whole lot of Makarov ammo with me at the moment. So I don't have too much trigger time behind this. But in the small amount of trigger time that I've had with this gun, it has been flawless. It has been fantastic. It's been surprisingly very accurate. So we'll get into a little bit here of the sights. So you can see they are extremely small, just tiny little notch with a front sight there. And some very, very nice, I wouldn't say checkering, but like, I don't even know the word. Anyway, the design here on the top, the anti-glare on the top of the slide is very well done. Has a very, very nice texture. It feels almost like a file in a way. So very, very nice job that they did there. And despite the, when I look at this, the rear sight looks almost like it's pushed over to the right just a little bit. But when I was shooting this, it was 100% centered with my target. So I'm going to leave the sights as is. I'm not going to mess with them. So when it comes to accuracy, I took a little bit of time to see where it was hitting at about 10 yards. Now, there are some videos that are saying that these P64s were zeroed for 50 yards, which is quite optimistic, I think, for any pistol, frankly, especially one as small as this. But considering the accuracy that I was able to obtain with this pistol at 25 yards, I would say 50 yards is 100% good to go. So let's see. This is my very first target at 25 yards, where I was just trying to get a feel for where it was hitting. And I was aiming for about here, so like the bottom here of this circle, because I thought, okay, well, if it's 0 for 50, I got to aim a little bit lower because it's going to hit high, right? So this is not really me taking my time or anything. And of course, the first shot was double action. So that's probably what this one was over here, just trying to get through that heavy trigger pull. So, you know, have some forgiveness because, you know, it's my first 50 some odd rounds with this pistol. So anyway, but this is pretty respectable, honestly, for this little tiny pistol at 25 yards. I mean, this is me standing offhand, not benched, not supported, nothing. It's just me just freehanding this, right? So this is not bad for the first iteration there at 25 yards. Now, I had some other targets where I really took some time to really slow down my shooting. Only took about 5 rounds each, because that's my usual standard for a nice group size is about 5 rounds. So really took my time with these. And the first one that I got here, and you can see I have a little frowny face here. The reason why I did that is because there was a gentleman next to me that was shooting a very, very blasty AR, like tiny little like 8-inch barrel with a huge muzzle brake on it. It was a little distracting, and it kind of scared me, honestly, because like I said, that single action trigger pull does surprise me quite a bit. So I'm not as experienced with this pistol as I would like to be, but hey, you know, that just comes with the territory. So anyway, I discounted this one, because that particular shot right there, because I knew that was me. I knew that was me flinching because the guy next to me was just banging away and just causing an absolute ruckus. But anyway, so the other 4 shots that I have here, my point of aim was down here, and you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that came out to about 2.5-inch group at 25 yards standing, which is pretty darn impressive, especially considering that they all kind of hit center here, except for, you know, that one up there. But that's freaking awesome. That's very, very good. That rivals some of my like full-size pistols even. So the fact that this itty-bitty gun like this can do something like that, dude, good to go. Now my next target that I did, and I ran out of ammo after this one, you can see this one opened up just a little bit, and these shots definitely were all me. There was no craziness going on, and that was right about 3.8 inch group at 25 yards, which granted is not my best shooting, but considering this is a tiny little pistol with an itty bitty sight radius, right? Hey, I'll take that, right? And I know mechanically speaking, this gun's probably more accurate than that. My East German Makarov and even the Chinese Makarov I had definitely proved to me that these kinds of pistols like this, your PPs, your Makarov, stuff like that have the fixed barrel and just a straight blowback design, they are phenomenally accurate. They are way more accurate than people give them credit for, but it's just the fact that they are a little bit harder to shoot, and purposes of like sight radius, grip, trigger, everything else, all the things that go into achieving a good group size at distance. It kind of works against the inherent mechanical accuracy that these pistols have. But like I said, hey, a 2.5 inch group at 25 yards, I'm cool with that all day long. And then of course, if you take just the group size at 25 yards and you move it out to 50, okay, so let's say for purposes of discussion, right, my 2.5 inch group there, double the group size, so you got 5 inches, right? Think of a 5 inch circle on a human sized target at 50 yards with this, for the zero that it was intended for. Dude, you can do that all day long, right? And even my more extreme group there that had basically a 4 inch group, that's 8 inch circle, right? 8 inch, think of 8 inches across, circle type on a human sized target. And you can definitely see that pistol is absolutely capable of the combat accuracy that was required at the time. So, all that being said is to say that P64 is absolutely a accurate pistol. Mechanically speaking, yes, it is capable of much greater accuracy than that. But I'd say for the average shooter, maybe for the usual line trooper in Poland at the time, you can absolutely do some work with this. And 9 Makarov is no slouch either, because it's definitely more powerful than 380, but not quite as powerful as 9mm. So it's in between those two, and getting shot is getting shot regardless. So even if you got hit with a 22, right, getting shot is getting shot. It's not a good thing. So I think for the purposes that this was designed for, it's more than capable of doing that. Is it outdated by today's standards? Absolutely, yes. But for the time back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whenever it got replaced, right? I would be totally fine carrying this and being issued this, being a part of Polish military, Polish police, whatever. I think you'd do just fine. So that was my shooting experience, and yeah, it really was more of getting used to the unique trigger on this, of course. If I was going to use this for concealed carry, which I think this would actually be a pretty darn good piece for concealed carry, despite the weight, because this is all steel. This is kind of a heavy gun for its size, right? So let me hold this up in comparison to the shield that I had earlier, and you can kind of see the size difference, right? So just kind of superimposing the two on each other, you can kind of see the shield is kind of just a tiny bit bigger than the P64, just a tiny bit. But considering what you get on the shield today for a modern pistol, 10+1 of 9mm with a striker fired trigger that never changes, right? It's no real comparison. I think the shield obviously is way lighter, being a polymer frame. But hey, if you want to be different, if you want to try something different, and you just kind of like the all steel and the inherent accuracy of this P64, this is not a bad option by any means. It stopped people back then in the 60s and 70s. It'll stop people today. This is my usual argument against that gun is outdated and that ammo is outdated and it won't stop anybody now. I'm like, it stopped people back then. It'll stop people now. So. Same argument with 32. People like to deride 32 as not being a capable cartridge. Sure, okay, it's not as powerful as modern offerings today, but they did use it for police forces back then. It'll stop people today just as well, especially if you hit them, here. So anyway, all that being said, with the P64, I like I said, I absolutely adore these things. I think they look really good. They shoot very good. The trigger is a little bit kind of you got to get used to it a little bit, right? It is different from the other PPKs, PPs, Walther, Makarov style pistols that I've shot before. It is a little bit different in that sense, but I do really, really like the fact that it's different. It's something different, right? And I have a lot of respect for the Polish people in the sense that they always like to do their own thing when it comes to firearm design, right? I mean, they could have accepted. I mean, they did use a Tokarev pistol for a little while, and Polish Tokarevs are of course, different from Russian Tokarevs and Yugoslavian Tokarevs and blah, 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 right? But they wanted to get away from that, and so they did their own thing. And, I appreciate the wanting to be different and do your own thing, because that's kind of, what I like to do. So that's, a lot of the guns I've reviewed on this channel. I'm not reviewing every model of Glock known to man because that's boring. But anyway, so these little guns I think are highly underrated, maybe even a little undervalued. But the prices I think have caught up to how nice these things actually are, and it's a nice little piece of Cold War engineering and production quality. So very, very nice guns. I really do enjoy shooting these. I probably wouldn't want to shoot it all day long, for like 200, 300 rounds in a sitting. My hand would probably get a little bit sore after that. But for its intended purpose and for shooting at the range and things like that, for having a nice piece that's different, capable, functional, practical, right? This thing checks all the boxes, and it just looks cool while doing it, and has some pretty cool history as well. So I'm quite happy with this purchase. I'm really glad it turned out well, because I didn't really know what to expect, because I was seeing all these videos about P64s and people saying it was bad, some people saying it was pretty good to okay. I really wanted to see for myself. So yeah, I do recommend P64s if you like, milsurp, like itty bitty little pistols, something different. If you watch Hop's channel, because Hop really likes inexpensive kind of jank pistols. Okay, this is right up your alley. Like me and Hop kind of, I like the fact that he likes cheap jank pistols, and I would say this kind of fits in that category, but in a really good kind of heartwarming way. So I really can't recommend these enough. Great little option. So I figured I'd bring that to you guys and kind of show you what it's kind of capable of, at least in my hands anyways. So if you come across one of these P64s, dude, like, buy with confidence, man. They're great shooting little pistols. Great shooting little pistols. So cool. That's all I got to say about that one. And I'll have a few more reviews coming up about more like kind of little pistols like this. I've been on like a little pistol tear lately, and should be some good videos coming up soon. So anyway, cool. That's all I gotta say about that, and we'll see you next time.